a number of people who've helped me over the course of this time. I want to first thank my committee. I want to thank Jan Lepart for chairing the committee. And I also want to thank Tom Markland for joining my defense committee. And I'm looking forward to our conversation later today and talking more about my work. I also want to thank Alex Dunn and Aaron Straight for helpful discussions over the years, as well as all of the comments and feedback you will give me today and on my thesis. I also want to thank our collaborators at Caltech, Rob Phillips, Yuri Chen, and Steph Johnson. And they did all the great experimental work I talked about in the first half, and we've had a lot of great discussions. And I also want to thank all the people in the Straight, Noguchi, Fuller, and Shockley labs for feedback and comments during various joint group meetings. And none of this would be possible without the help of staff and admins who, in Chemi and elsewhere. So I want to especially thank Jeannie for her help setting up the defense today and for getting funding situations. Annie for help with scheduling and printing, and also just Victoria, Miho, Pamela, Pam, and Corin for all their help. I also want to thank the people at the Hume Center for Speaking and Writing, especially Tom Freeland for help in listening to this presentation and gathering feedback. And of course, I need to thank funding, without which this work wouldn't be possible. Thank NSF, NIH, and many other funding sources that have supported this work. So next, I want to thank, special thanks to my advisor, Andy. As Andy mentioned, I came here from MIT, and Andy has been a really great advisor for me, and I want to sort of highlight, I guess, two aspects that really stand out. The first is that, as he mentioned, these problems can get quite challenging and really difficult, but Andy's a really great teacher, and he's very patient in walking through a problem with you, and so whenever I had issues, we were always able to sit down and walk through it together. The second aspect is that Andy always focuses on taking your research and then trying to build a story out of it. And this is something that I found pretty challenging, I would say, early on. But it's something that, through his sort of feedback and encouragement, I've really developed as both a writer and as a researcher. So I appreciate that, Andy. I also want to thank everyone else in this Backwards group. I've had the luck of actually working with people from the beginning of the lab, starting with Shafiq, Bariz, Mario, Steph, Lena, and Joe. And I want to give a special thanks to Lena, whose work underlies a few of the projects that I've worked on, and she's always been really nice and willing to answer any questions I might have had. And I also want to thank Mario, who I worked on with the project at the very beginning of my PhD. And I also want to thank all the current members of our group, Nick, Tom, Shafan, Brad, Sonia, and Shayna, just for creating a really great lab environment, always being willing to give me feedback, help with code or whatever it might be. Next, I want to thank a number of different folks across Stanford that I've had the pleasure of making friends with, including friends from the Catholic community here at Stanford, and appreciate all the support and prayers, which are sometimes necessary in getting through a PhD. Friends at the Stanford Running Club for helping me keep sane and a little bit in shape, and also participating in a 200-mile relay race. I've had the pleasure of also working on a project that looked at sanitation in the developing world in Cambodia. And I want to thank all my teammates on this project. NGO has picked up the project and since moved forward with it. And I also want to thank our awesome departmental IM team, Gazebo Gorillas, for lots of fun playing Frisbee and basketball and other sports over the years. I want to especially thank my friends in the chemical engineering department, especially my incoming class. We started out, we were doing pieces together, we were baking together, sometimes we were doing both at the same time. And also just going hiking and doing lots of other. Fine. This is from a prank I pulled on people before. Fine, fair enough. That song is from this like haunted Great America theme park. Anyway, thanks guys. Also just want to thank friends from around the Bay Area, and I've been lucky to have a number of friends who made the migration from MIT with me out to the Bay Area, and lots of friends in the Bay Area going to Tahoe, playing cards, not being upset when I win at fantasy football, and all sorts of other fun when people come and visit, and also meeting up with people all around the US and elsewhere. And so just thanks to all my friends. And last, I want to thank my family. My parents have always been supportive of me, and they sort of encouraged my interest in science early on. And my mom in particular has had to get over her fear of flying. First the hour flight to MIT, and now 6 hours out here. But she still made it out to visit. And I want to thank my sister, who's also been out here, and her dog Scout, who's my running companion when I'm home. And then most importantly, I want to thank my girlfriend Amy, who always knows if something's bothering me, and even if I'm not saying anything about it, is able to, has just been very supportive of me, especially over the past several months whenever she wasn't traveling around Europe. But I'm just very grateful to her for all her help, and all the food that was provided was basically all organized for her. And looking forward to our future adventures together. And lastly, thank Olive, of course, who is always available for be a distraction whenever I need it, and is very photogenic, as you can tell. So with that, I want to take any questions that you might have, and thank you all for listening. Questions?
So I was wondering if you could speculate you worked on, looping kinetics and also heterochromatin, and naturally like a very big question in higher order systems is actually the looping and unlooping of entire chromatin fibers. I was wondering if you could maybe just quickly speculate how your looping model would change if instead of having your driving force be the binding kinetics, but instead like an ATP-driven untangling mechanism.
Sorry, if it's are you talking? So if you're talking about like looping of these big fiber
looping of an
regions?
entire chromatin sort of fiber that's maybe mediated by like a larger machine versus the binding dynamics of a flexible protein.
Yeah. So the picture would be. So there are a lot of things, of course, that would change in that case. The fiber itself is very different properties than a DNA strand. And so trying to account for even an effective persistence like this sort of a murky question there. And so you'd have a very different sort of bending structure probably for what you would consider in that case. I don't know, I'm not too familiar with sort of the ATP-driven mechanisms that you're referring, but I guess, yeah, a lot of the picture would be pretty different, because you also would probably not be considering these twist effects either, which are more on the local scale. You have some orientation effect potentially, but also my understanding, at least in the case, for example, of these marks spreading, for example, where you might have the methyltransferase that is associated with the region, and the looping allows the methyltransferase to reach this other region. It would probably not be super orientation dependent. It's just more of possibly an enhancement within that area by looping it together. So yeah, those are just some thoughts, I guess.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So for your chromatin, as I understand it, the more interactions equals condensed. But do you have any intuition for what fraction interaction, or how many interactions would generate a sort of very condensed structure you see? Right.
So I didn't go into details, but there's a critical amount of Jz that needs to be the cell needs to be up in order for there to be a phase transition, and that value of Jz is dependent on a few different things, but in sort of a 3D connectivity, if you assume a cubic 3D connectivity, the value of JZ, you can sort of compare that to an Ising model type system, and in that case, the critical point is at like around 5.3 KT. Now, there's a lot of sort of methylation disorder in the system, and that can also raise the critical point. But that's sort of to give you a picture of what that would be. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the modeling is really great. One question I had is that you mentioned that there's all this evidence that HP1 is at a relatively rapid equilibrium inside the nucleus. So, data from the Crabtree and other labs have shown that the marking, the actual methylation process is actually very slow, on the order of like, it takes days to accumulate. Can you speculate, or is there any insight that your model could offer about why the marking placement could be so much slower than the actual protein that's gluing it all together, mediating the convection?
I don't know if our model can touch too much on the kinetics specifically, but I do know that one of the features of our model, when you have the high degree of cooperativity and you have this methylation threshold, what it suggests is that as long as the cell can sort of maintain above that threshold, you're going to get a highly bound region. And so, in some sense, even if I think other experiments have shown that recovery of methylation marks after cell division is sort of a slow process and it's not instantaneous. And so what this says, as long as you recover enough methylation in a region, you'll be able to recover the sort of condensed heterochromatin state. And so even if there's sort of slow recovery of the rest of the methylation. That's, I guess, some insight that I can offer. Any other questions?
Other questions? All right, that concludes the public part of the thesis defense.